dance with the bull, you're gonna get the horns. In today's episode of the Lido Loca Cruise Show, let's look at the family that thought they could do what they want. And now they got kicked off a cruise. And it begs the question, does it even matter what's happening over there in Europe? Who cares? It's not gonna affect North American cruising, right? Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Tony. If you enjoy that cruising and travel content, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of the episodes. Oh my goodness, what a juicy story to talk about coming out of Italy. Oh, it gives me the chills. I'm so excited to wake up and have something different to talk about today. But first, let's take a spin around the cruise news. All right, let's kick off this shindig with some new cruise ship news. Let's go all the way over to the Fincantieri shipyard in Monfalcone, Italy, where the MSC Seashore has been floated out. That's a significant part of the shipbuilding process. No longer does the ship have to stay in dry dock. Now it's a legit I can float on the water vessel. This is a good sized cruise ship. It can hold about 4,500 passengers. It will go into service for MSC in August of 2021. And now she can float on her own. And it's another feather in the cap for MSC. It doesn't look like they're taking their foot off the pedal. They are full steam ahead when it comes to shipbuilding, and they're full steam ahead when it comes back to bringing that cruise life back into the mainstream as we move forward into 2021. Good on you, MSC. Another cruise ship going into the fleet. My only beef is, why does everything start with the word sea? Is this the seaside, the seashore, the seashell? I don't know. I wish you would use some other different naming. That's just a personal preference, but I will learn the name. The MSC Seashore, coming out in August 2021. In less upbeat news, there's another cruise company that is struggling to pay its bills and now asking for help. I'm not sure how bankruptcy protection works in Asia, but looking at this story, it does look like Genting is heading that way. Genting is helmed by a Malaysian tycoon, Lim Kok Tae, and he is saying, look, I can't pay my bills. Can you guys help me figure out how to pay my bills? They filed the paperwork for protection from creditors. They're asking for outside people to come in and help them deal with their debt. And so, yeah, this is part of that path, that process going into bankruptcy. Genting, like all the other cruise lines, struggling during the shutdown. They have started providing sailings again, but at reduced capacity. And so now it becomes obvious that the bills are more than the money coming in, and they're going to need some sort of help, some sort of protection to stay afloat. It's choppy waters ahead for Genting. I mean, there's only a few levers to pull. You can sell some assets like your cruise ships and properties, but they got to do something to get to a position where they got more money coming in, the money going out. It's the only way to sustain the business. They're not completely kaput at this point, but this is the beginning of a downward spiral that, unless it's corrected, we may lose Genting as a player in the cruise industry. And honestly, it's no surprise 2020 is kicking everybody in the butt. Financial challenges, emotional challenges, struggles to get back to some sort of normalcy. And really, it doesn't seem like there's any person or company that's immune to it. The next story takes us back to Alaska, where the little cruise line who wanted to just get a few cruises in 2020, make a couple $1 million to keep that business afloat. UnCruise, they attempted cruising a few weeks ago in Alaska, and then they got caught up in this interesting saga of when does testing occur and which tests should be taken and which tests should be disregarded. I'll refresh you on the story. They had just a small cruise going out to the remote areas of Alaska. Their requirement was that people provided their own tests when they showed up to the cruise ship. There was a passenger who did that, but then there was a double test. When the passenger flew into Juneau, Alaska, there was a requirement that they were tested there, and so they showed up at the cruise ship with their negative test that they got at home before they came to Alaska. They were allowed to board the cruise ship, and then a few days later, the results from the Juneau airport test came back and showed that the person was positive for the virus. Everybody on the cruise ship was quarantined, there was retesting, and everybody showed up negative. So now there's this dance, like I got a negative test, I got a positive test, now I have a negative test. Was the positive a false positive? What's the deal? Well, the person that's the voice of reason in all this, the CEO of UnCruise, he came out about a week after the activities and said, look, I don't think it was a false positive. We got to trust our health systems. It's just one of those things with this virus. You don't know when it's going to manifest. You don't know how much levels you have to have in you to make the needle move one way or the other. That's what he said shortly after all that testing saga. And now today that he's had a couple weeks to reflect on it, he's come to the conclusion that many have. If testing is going to be a part of the process of allowing cruising to go forward, you have to have rapid testing. He says very plainly that if the airport test would have yielded results quickly in a timely manner, then that person would have been denied boarding based on that positive test. And the cruise could have happened to completion, and then the next cruise could have happened, and the next cruise could have happened. You know, what if that person had the result quickly? Could UnCruise's cruising season continued forward? Could the business have gotten the revenue it desperately needs to keep going forward into 2020? Who knows? It did play out the way that it played out, but you know, his big takeaway is we need rapid testing if we're going to use that as an indicator of whether we can cruise or not. And I agree. I do believe the testing is going to be part of the protocols going forward, and the only way it's going to work is if you get a test quickly at the point of embarkation. Just my opinion. Now let's get to the story that's had the internet abuzz for the last 24 hours. It's kind of a two-part story. I'm going to tell you what happened on the MSC Grandiosa that's making its first sailing since the shutdown in Italy. And then I'm going to talk about a conversation that evolved in the comments yesterday, whether or not what's happening in Europe even matters over here. So it's a two-parter. I'm going to give you the meat first. Stick around for the vegetables. But the meat is this. MSC very plainly said one of our protocols is if you come on our cruise ship and you want to get off at a port, the only way you can do that is to go on a shore excursion provided by MSC. And let me tell you what those shore excursions are going to be like. They're going to be tours that you have to stick with. There's no wandering off on your own. There's no self-exploring. You got to go with our excursion. You got to stay with our people. There's no intermingling with the local culture. We're going to be in a bubble, as it were, a social bubble, and you got to stay in that. And if you want to go off the cruise ship, that's what you got to do. That seems pretty straightforward. It seems like something that people could understand. Well, on the Grandiosa's very first port stop, on the very first cruise that has occurred for MSC since the shutdown, there were people that went on the ship excursion and decided, nah, I'm not going to do that. I know that I said I would do that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do what I want. You know why? Because I paid my money. I paid my money. There was a family who went on the MSC excursion and they decided to leave the tour group while out at port and just wander around on their own. I wish that there was a recording of how that went down. Look, if you've been married for any period of time or any long-term relationship, you know that in the relationship dynamic, there's usually kind of a dominant person and a passive person, and the dominant person, they communicate dominantly. The passive person communicates passively. I would love to see how that played out. I would love to see if the dominant person was like, look, I paid my money. If I want to take little Sally Sue and little Billy Joel and my spouse, and if I want to go see something else, get me a gelato, then you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm just going to do it. What are you going to do? You going to throw me off the cruise ship? I don't think so. Or it could have played out where the passive person worked their passive magic and said, it doesn't really seem fair that we paid all this money and we're in this beautiful city that we've never explored, and the only thing that we can do is ride on the tour bus. I mean, does that really seem fair? Kids, does that seem fair? It doesn't seem fair. It just seems like, I mean, I'm not unhappy. It doesn't seem fair. I mean, what are they going to do? Kick us off the cruise? I mean, we paid this money. You know, sometimes it happens like that, and the passive person in their passivity can incite the aggressive person to action. And so who knows what happened. But at some point, this family made the decision to do their own thing. And I'm sure they didn't think they would get kicked off the cruise ship. Well, you know what happened? They got kicked off the cruise ship. I talked about it in previous shows that cruising will change going forward, and one of those changes will be a more strict adherence to the policy. I mean, what were these people thinking? I'm not talking about wearing shorts to formal night or a baseball cap in the main dining room. We're talking about while an active pandemic is going on, this cruise line's doing its best to get people on vacation. They got some rules, and they're like, forget your dumb rules. I do what I want. Wow. That's a pretty entitled attitude. And yeah, they paid the price. When they went to reboard the MSC Grandiosa, they said, look, you broke the rules, and no, your cruise is over. Money forfeited. Got to figure out your own way home. I don't know if that's what they said. That's what I would say. I don't know if they're helping them get home. I didn't see that in any of the articles, but I would say you got to figure out your own way home. You didn't play by the rules, and now you're in the hurt locker. That's what I would say. I know that's kind of harsh. I mean, I'm usually a fairly compassionate person, but I'm frustrated. I want to get out and do stuff. I want cruising to resume, and there's a framework for that. People are saying we can do these things if you just do these things, and people are like, no, I'm not going to do it. I do have a quote from MSC, so it's not just me, frothing at the mouth over here. In line with our health and safety protocol developed to ensure health and well-being of our guests, crew, and the communities we visit, we had to deny re-embarkation to a family who broke from their shore excursion yesterday. By departing from the organized shore excursion, the family broke from the social bubble created for them and all other guests, and therefore could not be permitted to reboard the ship. Sounds like maybe that was written in advance. Do you think they had some inkling that something like this may happen? I don't know. The other interesting thing that relates to this coming out of the comments yesterday is this pushback that it doesn't matter what's happening in Europe. It doesn't matter what's happening in Asia. This is America. This is North America. This is Canada. It's America. It's Mexico. We do what we want. It doesn't matter what they're doing in Europe. It doesn't matter what they're doing in Asia. Look, I'm a proud American. I'm happy to live in the United States, but at the same time, we live in a great big connected world, and I've seen time and time again, not just in cruising, but in other things, how events around the world affect what's going on in cruising. I'll just give you an example. I was tracking along with the virus as the outbreaks occurred in Europe. The governments over there, they decided that the country should go on lockdown. And then as they came out of lockdown, they decided that there should be social distancing and there should be a masking policy. That's what happened in Europe. And then when the virus got heavy duty here, the government shut us down. As we came out of shutdown, they talked about social distancing and there was a masking policy. Now, look, I know that's too simple of a straight line correlation, but events that happened in Europe were predictive of events that happened in the United States. Now, overlay the fact that we're talking about companies that operate in both places, it seems reasonable that health protocols that are happening on cruise ships in Europe might also happen on cruise ships in North America. I didn't realize that I was almost in the minority on this. I just thought that made sense to me, and I am willing to grow and willing to learn, and I could possibly be proved wrong, but I do believe that the health protocols that are allowing cruising to happen in Europe will be applied over here in North America, and it could be a different dynamic how people respond to them, but that is what I believe. I put it to you guys, I put it to the people, and I was surprised, honestly. Again, I'm close to being in the minority on it. I ran a poll on the Facebook group, I ran a poll on YouTube. I simply asked if the protocols that are being put in place in Europe and Asia are successful. Do you think that they will make their way to cruising in North America? The answers were yes, no, and maybe some, but not all, because there's just some stuff we won't tolerate here in North America. And yeah, here's the results. Okay, over on YouTube, 701 respondents, 49% of the people said that if these safety protocols are successful in other parts of the world, they will make their way to North America. 49%, almost 50%. 13% said no, it doesn't matter. If they're successful, not successful, they're not going to make their way over to North America. And 38% said maybe some, but not all. Some stuff just won't fly over here. So I thought there would be a bigger disparity. I thought more people would say yes. So again, I'm close to being in the minority. I barely eked out being in the majority on it. My idealism that what happens over there will happen here. Now onto the Facebook group, the Lido Loca Cruising Community. If you want to come talk cruising, come over there. That's on Facebook, Lido Loca Cruising Community. We had about 245 respondents over there, and I'm definitely in the minority over there. 94 people said that yes, they would translate from Europe to here. 9 people said no, not at all. And 140 people said, look, some things will come over, but not all things, because all things aren't going to fly when it comes to cruising in North America. Now, I think the follow-up poll to that would be, well, what are the things that aren't going to fly? Just me, based on what I've seen over the last few months, I would say the masking policy is going to be the one that people are going to push back against the heaviest. If there's a vaccine requirement, I think people are going to push back heavy on that, but I don't know. I would be interested in the comments today. Where do you fall on this? What do you think the pushback policy policy will be when cruising comes to North America. Is it mask? Is it something else? Leave a comment below. Look, that's the show. Follow the rules, at least on MSC, or they're going to kick you right off that cruise ship. Thank you so much for watching today. My name's Tony. Hit the like button, show some support, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.